Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be talking about this specific forum post here on the War Thunder forums because of course, as is so often the case with new updates, as soon as the dev server went live there has been a lot of shouting going on in the War Thunder forums, and this one specifically sort of is pertaining to Sim, although it can be applied to the to War Thunder as a whole. But we're going to talk about it a little bit because as a Sim content creator I feel like this kind of falls into my domain. And I also find it quite an interesting topic, so I'm going to make a video about it. So this post was brought to you by this guy called Corporal Apollo, and what he has to say is this: the current multipathing feature in air battles negatively impacts gameplay, particularly for top tier jets involved in beyond visual range combat or BVR. Multipathing causes radar missiles to miss medium to low flying targets, leading to an unrealistic, frustrating and dull experience. The multipath effect is exaggerated by as much as 20 times realistic levels with the Fox freeze we have in game. This is just as much of an issue of balance as it is realism. So real quick, he has like a video sort of showcasing this now, and this is basically the footage that you're going to be seeing in the background here. Now you can see at about 100 meters the effect takes place, and as you can see, once the target aircraft crosses underneath 100 meters, the radar lockbox actually starts to sit below the aircraft. And this is basically what happens to the missiles as well. So once the target flies below 100 meters, any radar-guided missiles currently in the game will then sort of fly towards the ground instead of actually hit the aircraft that it's aiming for. Now, I'm just going to read through the rest of the post here before I give my thoughts, but the third point he makes here is impact on gameplay. This mechanic allows players to evade radar missiles incredibly easily by flying low, thus nullifying any BVR advantage and forcing close-range engagements. This tree-hugging meta completely diminishes the strategic depth of mod jet combat and leads to repetitive and unengaging gameplay. It also massively intensifies the disruptiveness of OP flight models such as the JAS-39 Gripen, since they can approach you with complete invulnerability by sticking to the deck and popping a few flares right before the merge. It completely negates the standoff capabilities of active radar homing missiles altogether, leaving you helpless. Then the fourth point he makes: reasons for reduction of multipathing in air simulator mode. Unrealistic gameplay. Mod jets are designed for BVR combat, and the multipathing feature undermines this aspect, making gameplay feel unrealistic and overly simplified. Considering various balancing issues at lower tiers, the additions of Fox Freeze to the game would be a perfect opportunity to introduce reduced ground effects for top tier. Gameplay balance. Reducing multipathing will encourage diverse and strategic combat scenarios, reducing the reliance on low altitude flying and promoting more dynamic engagements. At the moment, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by flying high and playing BVR. I kind of agree with that, actually. Using AirSB as a playtest, since the nature of simulator battles is to bring a more realistic experience to RB. Additionally, with the EC format, enduring confrontation, if you didn't know, and with the majority of the SB community being in favor of this change, I think it would be an excellent place to reduce the multipathing effect. So we'll go over the counter arguments in a second. Now, one of the things that he mentioned here, which I actually really agree with, is this line here. It also massively intensifies the disruptiveness of OP flight models such as the JAS-39 Gripen. Now, this isn't specifically a Gripen thing or anything, but essentially what he's saying here is that the Gripen, the way the developers have balanced the Gripen is they've given it a super good sort of dogfighting flight model, right? It has super good energy retention, super good sustained turn rate and stuff like that. It absolutely trounces like anything in a dogfight, right? Super easy to fly. However, the radar missiles that it currently has in game, which are the Sky Flashes or the RB-71s, I think they are, the short-range dogfighting Sparrow, can't really hold a candle to something like an R-27ER or even something like an AIM-7F. So in Gaijin's eyes, that's how it's balanced, right? It doesn't have the range, it doesn't have the BVR capability to go toe-to-toe with something like an F-15 up at altitude. So what does the Gripen player do? Well, the Gripen player just stays low and avoids every single radar missile that gets fired at it, and it essentially forces a merge like that. Now you find yourself in a merge. Now the Gripen has the advantage against the F-16C or the F-15 or whatever, and the Gripen essentially wins. That's a very broad sort of way of explaining it, but that's kind of the point he's trying to make here, where if the Gripen is balanced because its radar missiles aren't that good. Well, if radar missiles are kind of I don't want to say they're completely useless, but if they are kind of useless against someone that really knows what they're doing, is that still a balancing factor, right? That's like the sort of argument he's making here. And this isn't just pertaining to top tier, by the way. This is also, when you look at something like the Phantoms with the pulse Doppler radar, um, against something like a MiG-21 or a MiG-23. The MiG-23, for instance, right, I know it's getting nerfed now, but for the longest time, it absolutely trounced the Phantom's flight model. I mean, you just couldn't compete with, you simply could not compete with the MOD if you were flying something like an F4J. So your only chance was really to get it in, from range, in the head-on or whatever, with your radar missiles, because you do have, significantly better radar missiles, and your radar has longer range and stuff like that. However, if the MLD, all he had to do was just sort of fly low, skim the ground, and you can avoid every single radar missile coming at you just simply by flying low. And you can see this in the background footage here as well. This is another one. This is part of that same video that you used in the post to explain what multipathing is. But you can see just how well it works. And this isn't even a Phantom. This is like top tier. These are top tier aircraft. You are basically invulnerable. And as you can see, the Mirage kind of, he dodges all of the R-27s fired by the flanker, and then essentially they merge. And now if you've flown the Mirage recently, ever since they buffed the Magic 2, you know who's going to win that fight, right? So if we were to just completely get rid of multipathing, how would that pan out? And these are some of the counter-arguments that he listed here. Spawn killing concerns. While some fear that removing multipathing could lead to an increased spawn killing, this is unlikely to be a significant issue in SB. Players have multiple airfields to spawn from, reducing the risk of consistent spawn killing near active areas. Additionally, top tier jets have great acceleration and don't need much time to get up to speed to get into a defensive position. I'd even argue reduction of multipath effect will lead to less spawn killing, since the meta will no longer be to fly in a straight line on the deck at Mach 1.2 towards the enemy airfields, as the more dynamic gameplay will make it more difficult to advance forwards on the map. Areas near enemy airbases would also be extremely hazardous due to enemies being able to engage you right off one of the 3 runways around you. Okay, so this is actually one of the points I don't agree with him on. He basically says that like airfield camping won't be as much of an issue because there's like multiple airfields that you can get attacked from and stuff. Now, I mean, Sim already has multiple airfields and airfield camping is already happening. Just, I'm not sure if he's, maybe I'm just like reading it wrong or something like that, but just because it's Fox 3 doesn't mean that, you're after takeoff, you fire your missile at them and you can then just like sort of turn around, fly behind the airfield or whatever. I mean, I guess you could do that, but if the guy firing at you is like 10,000 meters up in the sky, which, if we do get rid of multipathing, you would have to fly at these kind of altitudes in order to give your missiles more range. Firing your Mica missile or your AIM 120 or your R77 at something that's like 15 kilometers ahead of you, at like 12,000 meters, it's not going to reach them, or at least their missile's going to reach you way before your missile reaches them. And you turning around, going behind the airfield isn't really going to help in that situation either, because all the other person has to do, again, because it's a Fox 3 missile, fire it, and then he can just kind of turn off and create all the range that he kind of wants to. These aren't Meteors or AIM 260s that are getting added to the game. These are the first generation of active radar homing missiles. They are not going to go flying halfway across the map. And for that case, or for that matter, I would say, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I think airfield camping would increase with this, like 100%, especially on maps like Denmark or Sinai, where there isn't a lot of like terrain to sort of hide behind or anything like that. And I think this could actually become, if they were to completely get rid of multipathing or whatever, which he goes on to saying that's not actually what he wants to do in the next part here, by the way. But if they were to completely get rid of it and not add like any kind of sort of long or medium range air defenses for the airfields, this could be like game killing essentially, because what would happen is one team would sort of start dominating the other team, and then the other team wouldn't be able to take off, kind of like how it used to be like 3 or 4 years ago when we still had the spawn point system in Sim, where one team would basically get up to like the Phantoms and stuff, or the MiG-21s really quickly, and the other team would still be sort of sitting in 8.0, like F-84s or whatever, trying to sort of combat them. So, and if they were to completely get rid of it, again, which he's not actually suggesting here in the next bit, I think this is like a problem we would run into, and it could lead to dwindling player counts for top tier and sim at least. Now I've been waffling on for a little bit here. The video's already longer than I actually wanted it to be, so I'll get through the rest of it quick here, and I'll just give some more of my thoughts in the end. Adaptation period: historical concerns over new mechanics, e.g. 30G all aspect missiles, Phoenixes, 27 ERs, have shown that the player base adapts over time. Similarly, reducing multipathing for active radar homing missiles should be seen as a natural evolution. Enhancing the game's realism and strategic complexity, it would likely even reduce the IR slinging furball meta that no one even likes in the first place. Yeah, I mean, it would reduce that 100%. Now, the solution: we do not need to completely remove the ground effect. To achieve the more dynamic gameplay I've proposed, we simply need to make the ground skimming invulnerability less consistent. So that's a very important word there, or 2 words. Making the player think twice about an engagement or an approach, and promoting other realistic missile evading tactics such as cranking, notching, and going cold as advertised by Gaijin. A reduction of the multipathing effect from 100 meters down to about 30 or 60 meters would go a very long way, since it would promote actual dynamic and engaging gameplay over uneven and unpredictable terrain. So these are maps like Spain, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and stuff like that, while still keeping it somewhat easy for people that decide to play on the flatter maps like Denmark. At the moment, you can consistently stay safe over the uneven terrain of Spain, Vietnam, there you go, you even mentioned them, with little practice, and I see it being abused every day I step into those games. With recent radar and chaff changes, missiles evading tactics like notching and chaffing have become very consistent, and I firmly believe the game is ready for the realistic gameplay this would promote. I sincerely hope the developers can take this into consideration, right? And he tags the 2 devs. So that was the whole post. As you can see, it has like 105 likes. So there are quite a few people that actually agree with them on this. And personally, I mean, I've been complaining about multipathing for the past year or so, or longer than that, basically ever since I made my channel. And I think it kind of ruins a lot of aircraft, specifically aircraft that rely on BVR, like the Phantoms, for instance, and like the Tornadoes are pretty, like the Tornado F3s are pretty, it's in a pretty bad spot right now. Stuff like that. I mean, even stuff like the new F4F ICE, right? The new Phantom that the Germans are going to be getting at 12.7, and it's at 12.7 because it has AMRAAMs, but Jesus, if all 4 of those are going to be, if all 4 of those AMRAAMs can be defeated super easily, and then, you have a Phantom at the merge against something like an F-16 or whatever, it's like, you can see it's kind of like how dumb it is. There's a lot of stuff that just sort of gets shat on, for lack of a better term, because of this mechanic. However, I think just simply, I've already mentioned simply turning it off. I just don't think is an option right now, because it's going to have the chain reaction is just going to be too huge. However, as he goes on about here, like just simply reducing it to about 30 to 60 meters, I think would be a good start. Just simply halving it, or even going down to 30 meters, I don't care. It means that on super flat maps like Tunisia and Denmark or whatever, you'd probably still be able to multipath like fairly easily. It would be a little bit more difficult for the average person to do, I guess, or if someone doesn't have like their control set up like absolutely perfectly, or isn't on a flight stick or whatever. Maybe 30 meters might be a little bit too low, but I think halving it would be a good compromise. Because I'll play the clip here again, but you can see the Mirage here. Like the flank is just firing at the Mirage, and he's not even that close to the ground, and it works over the ocean as well. It's absolutely ridiculous how it just renders any sort of, it doesn't matter how good the R27 ER is, if you're just anywhere near the ground, it just doesn't hit you, right? And you can force a merge, and it's sort of sad to see that these new Fox 3 missiles that have so much hype surrounding them are essentially not going to have any impact on the meta, really. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. Now, of course, there are people that do quite like the whole deck fighting meta and stuff, because these are also generally, the way I see it, these are the type of people that don't really have that much interest in BVR, which is fine. However, I think in summary, like something needs to be done about multipath, because it is just too powerful right now. I mean, how's the game gonna be like once we get to to F-35s, which can only carry like 4? I think it's about like 4 AMRAAMs internally, or I think the British ones can carry up to 2 Meteors. And those are like the only air-to-air weapons that they have in the stealth configuration. So imagine being in an F-35, the super modern ACE radar super stealth fighter or whatever. You get 2 of the best missiles currently out there, like nowadays, and they just get defeated because someone's flying like below 100 meters on the ground. It doesn't make any sense. So nor would it like balance wise or even like in realism, talking in realistic terms or whatever. So something is going to happen with something's going to have to happen with multipathing at some point, and I think, as a few of the comments are also sort of saying right now, I think now could be quite a good time to sort of to try it. The introduction of Fox 3 missiles. These are the missiles that have their own onboard radar. Let's get everyone used to having to sort of notch, having to go cold, get everyone used to BVR mechanics, because it's only going to get more tricky from here. Now, there are a whole bunch of like other arguments as well that I just haven't included in the video because we're already past 15 minutes and I really don't want to sit here for 45 minutes. But if you agree with this or if you disagree with this or whatever, put it in the comment section of this video, or I've linked this actual post in the video description so you could go comment directly on the forum post if you want to have your opinion heard. And because I'm actually interested to see what the wider community thinks of this. I mean, the comments here seem to be, like on the actual post, seem to be fairly fairly positive. There are a few negative ones, but they do seem to be like pretty overwhelmingly positive. So I'm really interested to see like what everyone thinks of this. If you agree, if you don't agree, please give your reasons down in the comments. And maybe we can sort of there's something we're missing about this. You never know. But anyway, I've been talking for way too long. I still have to study tonight, so yeah, pray for me, please, and I will hopefully see you in the next video, guys. Cheers. Thanks for watching.